Good morning, students. The class for today is on introduction, general characteristics, mechanism, cause, effects, and prediction of disasters. Okay. First, we'll see some general characters because we have finished the introduction last class. We'll just see some of the natural disasters which we are not going to cover in detail because it's not in your syllabus. First thing is the earthquake. So earthquake is the movement of the ground. So the ground shakes. Why does it shake? Because of sudden release of energy which is caused when two layers of the earth underground, it is not over the ground, underground, they hit each other. So it releases a lot of energy. The energy is much more than the atomic bombs. So that much of energy is released from the earth's crust or the center of the earth. So what we call as epicenter is the point on the earth's surface directly above the area where the earthquake occurred. For example, the earthquake will occur 10 kilometers under the surface of the earth, but the point on the top just above the place where the earthquake has occurred is called as the epicenter or the center of the earthquake. So why do these earthquake occurs? Because the earth's crust or the under the earth there is a lot of brittleness, that is fracture, it is easily breaks. So different parts of the earth's lower part will break and they keep moving against each other, and when they hit against each other, earthquake is caused. Okay, so that releases a lot of energy and the earth shakes, and a small amount of earth shaking causes a lot of damage above the ground. Okay, so then we'll go to tsunamis before we go to volcanoes. Tsunamis are giant waves that are caused by earthquake or volcanic eruptions under the sea. Okay, I wanted to finish tsunamis before volcanoes because it's related to earthquake. When the earthquake occurs under the sea, so the ground under the sea shakes. So what happens is when the ground shakes, the water which is on the above the ground, it gets sucked inside and then released, and so it comes to the shore. When it is over the sea area, we cannot see the tsunami because the force with which the water is pushed is from the inside. If you shake inside your house itself, if there is a tank which is shallow, which is not like a tumbler is the depth is too much, but if it's a shallow water, then if you shake it, it will be like the waves are being created. So when the sudden movement of the earthquake causes the waves to come fast and then hit the shore, and when it hits the shore, the height of the tsunami can be many hundreds of meters high. So that when that falls into the shore, it destroys everything in its path, including buildings, and it kills all the people. Okay, the most common damage is to the life and property, all the people in the coastal area, because every country, most of the people live in the coastal area because there is a lot of activity near the coast. All these people will die if there is a big tsunami. Okay, and then we'll come to volcano. Volcano is a break in the earth's crust or the surface of the earth. There is a break, and in this open area, the underground lava, the center of the earth, if you cut the earth into half, the center of the earth, it is full of hot sand and gas and everything mixed together, rock, everything. So when the earth is open, this lava will come out. So that is called volcano. Usually it is on the top of a mountain. So what happens when a volcano erupts? When the volcano gives out all this hot air and ash, there is a lot of pollution, and the hot lava, when it flows down the hill, it causes destruction in its path. Whatever is there, it will get burnt and it will get destroyed. So there are three types of volcanoes. One is an active volcano. Active volcano is, it it is always active. There is no rest. So that means it continuously emits all this lava and hot air and gas. Whereas a dormant volcano is resting most of the time, but suddenly it becomes active. The third type of volcano is an extinct volcano. That means it is not active. As far as human beings can remember, it has never erupted. So that is called an extinct volcano. So it does not emit any of the lava. So these are the general characters of disasters and the mechanism in which they function. Let us see the consequences and effects of these disasters. A lot of consequences. The main thing is the people will lose their jobs whenever there is a disaster. Even the coronavirus, you see on the roads, auto drivers, they have lost their jobs. A lot of people working in small shops, they had to close the shop for 2 months. Like that, whenever there is a flood, whenever there is a tsunami, all the people living in that affected area will lose their jobs. The next thing is the communities will become separated and services will not be provided. So whenever there is a disruption, whenever there is problem, so the communities will become separated and there will be loss of normal sources of food. Okay, so even during this coronavirus, what happened was we did not get proper supply chain because the lorries were stopped in the state border. So vegetable movement, food movement, everything got stopped. So all the shops had less items. Same way, whenever there is a flood, Chennai, when there was flood, there was no food in the shops. So any disaster, whether it is man-made or natural, if it continues for a short period of time, there is food loss. Then people who are in the affected area, they lose their shelter and house because it gets damaged. Whenever there's an earthquake, if the house is damaged, then people live on the roads because their house is broken. Then fuel. So even coronavirus or any disaster, the movement of trucks which carry fuel is stopped. So there is lack of fuel for cooking. Then usually during cyclone or during disasters like floods, people are kept in the Kalyana Mandapams and other places where they are crowding. So when there are a lot of crowding, communicable diseases, that is diseases that are infectious and can spread from one person to another, will affect the people because they are living in close areas. Then there is additional burden for women and they have to take care of the family, so they have more women, and children are affected because their education is affected. They are separated from family members. During tsunami, all the men and women died. So there were a lot of children who became orphans. They lost their parents. Then the land is lost. Whenever there is a like tsunami, what happened was the salt water came into the village area. So what happened? People could not grow plants for a long time. So the water became salty. So the ground was not usable. Then communication and logistic problems. As I said, the trucks will get stopped and the communication will get affected because there will be no current, and because no current is there, cell phone towers will not work, people cannot charge their cell phones, so all the communication will stop. Then other than all this, people will have a feeling of insecurity. For example, when a flood is coming, people will not know how deep the flood will be, how many days they will be affected. Then when an earthquake comes, a lot of people, they keep thinking that the second earthquake will come or a third earthquake will come. So there is a lot of insecurity and people will be anxious, tensed. So there are a lot of psychosocial problems. So these are the common problems that can occur. Then other than these, there will also be people who are displaced. So what are displaced people? For example, during coronavirus, a lot of people had to move from one place to another. These were called the migrants. So people from different states who had gone to other places to work, they became refugees. They had to depend on other people for food and transport because they didn't have any money. So any disaster happens, when there is a cyclone, if a particular area is damaged, or if there is a flood and one particular area is completely under the water, then all the things in that area will get damaged. The houses, the certificates, the bags, the clothes, food items. So these people will not have anything. They will become displaced people and refugees. They depend on NGOs and the government for their food, their daily needs, their shelter, everything. They depend on other people. And even during wartime this will happen. So these are the displaced people and refugees. So usually NGOs and government take care of these people to make sure that they are given their food, housing and shelter. Then can we predict disasters? The usual answer is we cannot predict disasters, but the improvement in technology has made it possible that some of the things we can at least understand whether it is going to affect or not, and we can take adequate precautions. So what we can say is, though it is not always possible to predict disasters. For example, we know that when a cyclone is going to affect the country because we have satellites, and through the satellite images we know that a cyclone is coming. Same way, scientists have found ways to predict tsunamis. Whenever there is an earthquake, they know that a tsunami can occur, so they give warning to the people. So like that, even earthquakes, there is minimal prediction. People say if there is a a small shake of the ground, they say that sometimes a larger earthquake will follow. So some ways of prediction are there. So we'll see how we can predict natural disasters. The first is the modernization of weather prediction system. So we can predict the weather even before today. If you take for example the meteorological people, that is the people who study the atmosphere, can tell you 1 week from now what will be the temperature in Vellore, whether it will rain, whether it will be sunny. So all these things, so they can predict the weather and tell us whether there is chance of flood, whether there is chance of a storm. So this way we can predict the weather system. Next is we can do research to improve the prediction of atmospheric and hydrologic hazards. For example, there are a lot of storms that can develop which can lead to sudden waterfall or rainfall in a particular area, which can lead to flash floods and other kind of disasters. So we can predict all that based on the satellite images. Then we can do research on the impact of disasters on natural resources. What are natural resources? The gas connections and the mines where you get coal and even gas from underground. All these are natural resources. So when a disaster occurs, the natural resources will get affected. Even the fish that you get from the sea, it is a natural resource. You have to go and it is a food item which you get from the sea. So when there is a tsunami, you know that people won't go to do fishing, so that natural resource is affected. So like that we will be able to understand the impact of disasters on natural resources. Then we can also have earthquake monitoring and research. The people who study earthquake are called seismologists. What they do is they keep probes under the ground. So whenever there is a mild shake, they will be able to record the shaking of the ground. So they will be able to predict whether a major earthquake is going to come. Though they will not be able to predict 1 month in advance, at least they'll have enough time to predict so that people can get ready and they can save their lives. Then the monitoring of volcanoes. Volcanoes are divided into active, dormant and extinct. So based on the movement of the lava and the sound which is coming out from the volcanoes, scientists will be able to predict whether the volcano is going to erupt or not. So if it is going to erupt, they give adequate warning to the people so that they go from that area and make themselves safe. So main reason for prediction is to warn the people about disasters so that they are able to escape from that area with their lives. Though you may not be able to save your property, at least your life and your family members' life can be saved. So main way in which we warn the people is through public-private partnership. So that means NGOs and the government will tie up, and whenever anybody gets any idea about a natural disaster, they tell all the people through radio and other methods, social media and so many other methods, so that people can so other than these methods of warning, There are also social media that you can use, and through cell phone messages can be given. And but in spite of this, we find that a lot of people do not move from that area. So we can use newer mechanisms and newer technologies to inform the people, because if you know, for example, if a cyclone is going to come, then a lot of people will not move. They'll think that they'll be safe, they'll think that their house is very strong, but they won't know the speed at which the wind is going to blow, whether they will survive. Same way, when a flood is going to come, people will think that they'll lose all their possessions, all their material things, their TV, fridge, everything will go. So they'll try to stay at home and protect their things. Only in the last minute, when their life is going to go, they'll think that it would have been better to escape, because till then for them the life saving is much more important. Same way, if a sudden tsunami is going to come, then half the people will be sleeping in the night time, so it is not easy for people to be warned. So newer methods of technologies should be used for these warnings. Then the behavior of the people should be researched, why they are staying in the area where disasters can occur. A lot of people stay near volcanoes, they stay near places which are earthquake prone. So why they are staying there, and why they are not listening to the police when they warn about the disaster. So a lot of people will not move from the area till it is too late. So this is also there. Then improving the method in which the warning message can be transmitted, that also should be researched. So next we'll go to the flood control. So what is a flood? Flood is a sudden flow of heavy water which occurs because of a burst dam, or when a river is overflowing because of rains in a particular area. So these kind of things causes floods. So when flood happens, there is a lot of water which goes at high speed. So when the water is flowing at a high speed, it destroys everything in the path. It destroys the houses, buildings, and everything is completely broken, and the people who live there usually die. And other than the destruction, it also destroys all the crops. So there are a lot of damage that happens because of floods. So when the flood has happened, that means the drinking water is also lost, because if you have a tank where you have stored water, all the flood water will mix with the drinking water sources. So what will happen is all the water will become dirty. People will not have water to drink, they will not have food, because all the water is mixed with all the food items. So in Chennai, we know that when the flood happened, some areas the flood was so many feet high, it submerged up to the second floor buildings. In some areas it was maybe the height of one human being. So that means in spite of that, all the houses, all the rubbish from the flood, it entered the houses. There were a lot of snakes, scorpions, things like that inside the house, and all the food items, if you have stored rice, it got damaged, all the electrical items got damaged. So these are the problems that can happen because of the floods. And in India as well as many other countries, most of the houses are built in flood areas. Okay, and when there is severe rain, sudden huge volume of rain because of cyclone and other things, or even normal monsoon, then floods can happen. Okay, so because India has 1/8 of the country is prone to flood, the government launched the National Flood Control Program. This was launched in 1954, and over the years from 1954, most of the areas have been saved, and there is adequate protection for the people from floods. Okay, sometimes floods also happen because the waterways, usually the canals and things like that, take the water from the town into the river, and from the river into the sea. So if these canals are blocked and houses are built, then what will happen? The water will not have enough place to flow, then it will flood the particular area. So the buildings that we have to build, all this have to be carefully done so that flood is prevented. In India, most of the flood is because of rain, and sometimes the flood happens because the seawater suddenly enters the city, especially coastal areas, Chennai and Mumbai, for example. The seawater can rise in times of a cyclone, so that can enter and cause flooding. Then we also need to know about flash floods. What are flash floods is, there is sudden high flow of water. Suddenly when you open a dam, what will happen? The water will flow from the dam into the river, and if it overflows the banks of the river, then it will enter into the cities and towns which are situated on the sides of the river. That will cause damage. Sometimes even like Palar, for example, several years there has not been much water flowing, so people have started living very close to the water. Suddenly in one particular year, if there is heavy rains in the catchment areas and the dams are open, then if the water flows too high, then it can lead to a lot of damage in Vellore. So these are called flash floods, sudden floods because of opening of a dam or due to a cloud burst. Cloud burst means suddenly one particular area there is heavy rainfall which has never happened in history, and that will lead to severe increase in water, and that is called flash flood. So why are floods common? Floods are common because of the wrong buildings, then the building of buildings on the path of the water. It can also occur because of unplanned construction of dams and check dams which are suddenly opened, and it causes a lot of vulnerable people. Who are the vulnerable people? Is the people who are poor, who are unemployed. Yesterday we saw in the previous class the people who are at high risk for getting affected by disasters. So these vulnerable people are the ones who get affected if there is severe flood. Next we'll see the severity of flood and life-threatening characters of flood. When a flood happens, usually there is no warning. That is, nobody knows when a flood will come, because suddenly the rain can come. Though we have warning methods, we do not know exactly how much rain is going to come. So people may think it is going to rain this much, but if it rains beyond that, then it can cause flood. Then it can also cause high speed of water flow. So during any flood, the water, we always know that water goes from a higher level to a lower level. So it flows very fast and it will destroy everything in its path. And then the depth of the flood water, usually it is 1 meter or more, and when it goes at high speed, even a little depth, it can cause a lot of damage. Then long duration flood, that means if the flood is present in a particular area and the water is not able to go out of the area, then that water will stay in that area for a long time. That is long duration flood. Then if the flood has more than one peak, that is, one time it floods and then again it starts flooding, then it is called flood double peak. Then debris load of flood water. Usually, when the floods happen, it carries a lot of waste things like trees and broken buildings, rocks, everything. So what will happen? The big trees that are being washed away by the flood, it will destroy even more buildings and more things that are in its path. So this can lead to more damage. And the type of weather that is accompanying the flood, if it is still raining when the flood is happening, then people cannot be rescued easily, because it is continuously raining and the water level is always rising, so it is much more risky. So these are some of the characters of floods. So how can we prevent all this damage? How can we overcome the flood? The first thing is planning. We have to make sure that we divide the flood prone area from the non-flood prone area. So based on the rainfall, we will know which area is likely to get flooded. In Vellore, for example, Karigiri has very little chance of being flooded because we are at a higher level and we are far away from the river. Whereas if you take the people who live very close to the Pala river, they are at a much more flood prone area. Okay, so that is how we will divide the surface area into flood prone area and non-flood prone area. Then we will have to do a vulnerability analysis. We already saw vulnerability, the people who are at risk. So the population who are at risk for floods, they have to be identified, and adequate precaution and adequate steps should be taken to protect those people. Then we can also do a flood risk mapping. There are software which are called geographical mapping, where you can map on the Google map which are the areas which are at risk of floods. and you can also see what are the buildings that will be damaged and what are the areas to which a flood can happen. So this is called flood risk mapping, which can be done. Then based on the areas which are flood prone, we can protect the land. So if you find a particular area is prone for flood, then you can grow crops in other areas so that your crop is protected. You can build buildings in other areas. So based on the flood prone area, we can make policies and programs so that that area is avoided for anything. Then climate can be forecast based on the climate satellite images. The geologists can tell the climate and whether it is going to rain or not, so that can help in planning for the floods. So I already explained our geographical information system. So the mitigation methods, how do we prevent actually, and how do we save the people who are affected by flood? So when a flood happens, it causes a lot of destruction and damage. So we have to reduce the effect of the flood. So one method is structural measure, the other method is non-structural measure. Remember, in any disaster, there are structural measures and non-structural measures. Structural measures means the buildings or the constructions that you can do to prevent further damage or to protect the people. That is structural measure. Non-structural measure means those without building, any planning, any other thing is called non-structural method. So in the structural method, we can build dams. What are dams? Dams are huge structures on the path of the river so that the river flow is stopped, and you can actually divert the river from that area to different area. So dams will stop the water flow, and so floods can be prevented. Then dikes also are smaller kind of dams. Then embankments means on the side of the river you build using sand and other brick. You make different pathway for the river. And then reservoirs also, it's like a tank where you store the water. So if there is excess water, you store the water in the reservoir. So only when the reservoir is full and it overflows, it will go as flood or river. So these are ways in which you can prevent the flood from flowing. Then you can also divert the water through a bypass. Just like the road, there is a bypass, roads that go without entering a city. You can also divert the water by building a man-made river so that the flood water does not affect the area where people are living. Then you can also do construction in the riverbed. So I already told you there are canals. That means the way in which the water flows. For example, the Pala river is there. On the sides, if you build using a brick wall so that the water does not enter the city, then the water will flow only in the center of the river. So that these are methods in which you can construct riverbeds and waterways. Then all the buildings that are in a particular area can be made flood proof. That is, you can have a high entrance, or you can build like some buildings, if you see, they have car parking in the lower floor. So like that you can build on pillars so that even if the water enters, it will not affect the people who are living. It will only affect the lower area where nobody is living. So that is the way we can make flood proof buildings. Then the government should make rules that every building should be inspected, and rehabilitation and maintenance of the building should be done so that people are safe in terms of flood. Then the other non-structural methods are land use planning and control. So we plan how to use the land. So there are some times when the land can be used in a wrong way, like farmland can be used for buildings. So that what will happen, the farmland will be affected. So if you build buildings in the path of the river, for example in Chennai, the Kuvam river is there, and the Chembarambakkam lake is in the Kanchipuram district. Okay, so on the way from the Chembarambakkam lake till it reaches the sea, there were a lot of buildings that people have built over the last 10 years, 15 years. So suddenly when there was heavy rain in Kanchipuram and the lake became overflowing, the water did not find a place to go, because all the usual place in which it used to flow, there were buildings. So it became flooded. So the land use should have proper planning, and the government should control where the buildings are built. And as we saw earlier, the zoning of the flood prone lands. 1/8 of the country is prone for floods. So each area we should find out whether it is prone for floods and make sure that that area is protected and people do not live there. Farming is not happening there, so that people's lives and livelihoods can be saved. And finally, the redevelopment of the flood prone area can be done, so that by protecting the area from becoming flooded, we can build dikes or divert the water, so that that particular area which was identified as flood prone can be made into flood proof area and prevented from flooding. So that way we can redevelop the area which is usually flooded. So these are the ways in which we can prevent flooding of a particular area. We'll see the remaining in next class. Thank you.